10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 236. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 236 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Really happy to have you back, and we are going to continue our series on getting started with some composition tips. Today we're going to dive into actually writing some melody lines from scratch, but with a few guidelines that I think will help you get over that empty page syndrome, as I like to call it. So before we jump into the show, I would like to thank some brand new patrons. And if you're not sure what patrons of this podcast are, we are a listener-supported show. And the way that we keep this operation going is from the listeners out there, just like you. So these people are pledging a small amount of money every month, and what you get in return for that is a set of PDFs with every single episode, and for a few dollars more a month, you will also get audio examples of the things that we play in the episodes, along with some other really cool stuff. So I wanted to give a big shout out to our new $3 patrons. Thank you to Michael, Bob, and Strauss. And we've got one new $5 patron this week, so thank you to Zach for signing up to the $5 tier. So if you are not signed up, but you would like to become a part of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family over on Patreon, you can go to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, go over there, pledge your support, pick your level, and you get instant access to all of the materials that we have ever put out. Thank you to the over 300 members we've got over there. Really appreciate you, and you are the ones that keep this thing going. All right, so let's jump into the episode. So last week we talked about starting composing with a template over a chord progression that we are used to, which was the blues. And a couple of you have posted over on the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group already, and your compositions sound fantastic. So this week we are going to sort of dive into the age-old question of whether you should write the melody first or the chords first. And the answer to this is both, right? It kind of depends on who you are as a musician. If you work better writing the melody first, go ahead and do that. If you work better coming up with a chord progression and then writing a melody over that chord progression, go ahead and do that. Of course, with jazz, with creative endeavors, there is no right or wrong way. So we're going to actually investigate both. And the first one we're going to talk about is writing the melody first. Now, this is going to be the first week where you are sort of starting with an empty page. But I am going to give you a few guidelines that are going to help you. And this is what we as jazz educators really like to do. We present you with a concept and we kind of hold your hand through the first little bit of it, which is really important, maybe give you a few rules or give you a starting place. And then eventually you feel comfortable just kind of doing your own thing. But remember, at the end of the day, these are really just ideas to get you over the blank page. Okay, so feel free to use some of these ideas in the future and then go off and really do your own thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a key and we're going to start by writing a 4-bar phrase, right? So the key that we're going to pick is concert F major. And there's going to be a couple of rules that go into this. So the first rule is you can only play diatonic notes from the key of F major. So that's a pretty serious box that I'm putting you in. Those are some pretty hefty restrictions that I'm putting on you. You cannot use a note that is outside of the F major scale. Okay, so there's the first rule. The second rule is you must write a 4-bar phrase. I don't want you to write anything longer than a 4-bar phrase. Let's just start with something that's really, really short and something that is easily attainable, which is writing 4 bars, okay? Now, the other rules that I'm going to give you 2 little exercises to write two little compositions to write this week. And I'm going to give you the starting note and the ending note. And I think that'll help with the direction of the line, because sometimes what people do is they'll start writing a line and they just can't end it. Like they just don't know where the line comes to a logical conclusion. So I'm going to kind of force you into a logical conclusion by the end of that 4 bars, right? So if you take out your PDF and you look at the first 2 lines, what I have is an example melody that I wrote. And then I also have a space for you to write your own 4-bar melody following that same layout that I use to write my melody. Okay, so let's check out those rules that I followed to write this melody that I came up with. So you'll see on the PDF, it says the melody starts on the 3rd, which in the key of concert F is going to be concert A. And then I want it to end on the root. So you will notice that the last note that I used in my little 4-bar melody is a concert F, the root. It's 4 bars long, and I have not used any notes outside of F major. It's all diatonic. So let me play the melody by itself for you. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll play that one more time. 2, 3, 4. So what you will notice about that melody is the fact that it starts on the 3rd, gives it a nice melodic first note. And then the fact that it ends on the roots kind of puts a period on that phrase, right? That's something that the formula has resulted in. When I end on the root, it gives a phrase kind of a sense of finality. And I don't feel like I need to go on and write more. That phrase can kind of just stand on its own without anything coming after it. Now, one thing you will notice is that I actually wrote chord changes to this melody. And in this process of writing this little melody, that actually took me the most time, was putting chord changes to the melody that I wrote. And you should do that. You should do that because, of course, at the end of the day, your melodies have to have some kind of chord progression that go along with it in order for it to be a complete tune. So after you write your melody, I want you to go through and figure out, all right, what chords are going to fit with this melody. Of course, the chords that I wrote are very, very simple. It's just a 1 chord for the first 2 bars, and then I do a quick 2-5 back to 1 at the end. And that seems to fit really nicely with this melody. So let me play it with the chords so that you can check out what it sounds like after I decided on those chords that I was going to use. So here it is with the chords. One more time. All right. So there's melody number 1. So now what I want you to do is I want you to go to the key of concert F major, and I want you to write a 4-bar melody that starts on the 3rd and ends on the root. And then once you're done with that and you're happy with that melody, it stays only in the key of F diatonically. Then I want you to write some chord changes with it. Very simple exercise, but might actually take you a while if this is new to you. All right, let's look at the second melody. So slightly different rules, slightly different writing prompt here. So what I'm doing is I'm starting on the 5th, I'm staying diatonic, but I'm going to end the melody on the 9th. And the effect that this is going to have is that I'm going to want to write more. If I end on the 9th, it's not putting a period on that phrase. It's actually going to have the opposite effect. It's going to be sort of begging for something at the end of this phrase. So check out this second melody that I wrote and hear how it wants to go on. It wants another 4 bars. Here's this melody. 2, 3, 4. Isn't that screaming for more? It really, really is. So you can decide on the direction of your phrase and the length of your phrase by choosing a different note at the end that doesn't resolve, right? Then it sort of forces you into writing another 4 bars, writing another phrase. And 2 notes that will really spur you to write more would be if you ended that 4-bar phrase on the 5th or the 9th. Those 2 notes, they really want to go somewhere else. So keep that in mind. Start with one on the 9th and then maybe write another one that ends on the 5th. So you see, there's a lot of possibilities here in terms of choose your own adventure kind of thing, where you start with just 2 arbitrary notes. Start on this note, end on this note. The requirement is you stay in the key of F. And you can come up with a lot of ideas just using these simple writing prompts that you can come up with. And you could sit down for a week and force yourself to write a melody a day using these writing prompts. You'll come up with a whole bunch of different stuff that might eventually turn into a tune. Now you can hear that these melodies that I've written are just simple little melodies. They're not going to win me any composition competitions. I'm not going to be premiering this little 4-bar phrase that I wrote at Carnegie Hall, but it gets some notes on the page, and then I can develop this little germ of an idea into a full composition if I work hard enough. So what I want you guys to do is write those 2 melodies. The first one with the first set of requirements and the second one with the second set of requirements, which is probably going to force you to write more. That second writing prompt is probably going to result in an 8-bar phrase because of the way that it ends. But the important point here is that you're doing just a little bit of composition every day. You're starting with a blank page and you're actually putting something down on there. So start with the exercises that I've given you, and then you could write your own exercises using some of these writing prompts and work on your melody writing. And next week, we're going to talk about writing some chord progressions and starting there. How do we logically do that? Give you a new set of writing prompts and talk about kind of the flip side of writing the melody first and instead writing the chord progression first. So if there are any questions on this, which I think that there might be, just get in touch with me in the Facebook group, or you can ask me on Patreon. But I really want you to sit down and do these assignments. That's going to be the important thing. Don't think that you're going to get better at this without actually sitting down and doing it. You've got to put the work in, you've got to put that time in and actually do these exercises that we've come up with. All right? Okay, have a great weekend, everybody, and we will see you next week with some brand new episodes. Hope everybody's staying healthy and happy out there, and keep up the practicing, keep up the hard work, and I think this stuff will really benefit you at the end of the day. All right, we'll talk to you soon, everybody. Bye.